Hello and welcome to the Full 10 Yards Draft Betting Pod. It's been a long 10 weeks since the Super Bowl and we are finally back after a little bit of a rest, a little bit of time off, with a look at the betting for the draft this year. I listened to Liam and Lee's Full 10 Yards mock draft. Listened to that today. That was my one piece of research, so I might have got a little bit of information from there. And I believe the mock draft 2.0 is coming this week as well. I will pass you over to Liam in a minute to let him confirm that. I'll admit I've been horribly out of touch so far this year, and I've only just started putting in a little bit of effort this week, so I'm largely going to be a passenger on this one. But fortunately, I have our former exalted leader, Tim, with us, and I have Liam with us to go through their betting picks, and I will obviously chip in with a few little picks myself, and we will see where we go. Tim, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Exalted is an interesting word. I initially for a split second I thought you said exhumed, which is when you get someone out of a coffin, isn't it? Which is probably a bit more apt. But yeah, no, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Yeah, it's been good. It was actually I really enjoyed doing some prep for this pod, and as the years have gone by, I know long-time listeners would have heard me years and years ago. I've probably become a tiny bit more casual than I used to be, but it was nice to kind of do a bit of digging, do a bit of research, and trying to, I used to sound on the pod, make some quiche.
Some quiche. Yeah, I should have led with that right at the top. I apologise for not giving you a nod there. Liam, obviously, as I was saying, listen to your mock draft in the week. Very good work, of course. Nice to hear Lee on there, even though he claimed that the Eagles have the best 1-2 wide receiver duo in the league, which is obviously completely wrong. But it was very useful to listen to, and it was informative for me. So how are you doing? And can you confirm the 2.0 is out this week?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So yeah, I'm good. Thanks. We're going to record 2.0, I think, on Sunday. So it'll probably be out Monday morning, probably. As long as Sean can upload it for me by time on Monday. So yeah, should be out Monday. We'll swap the orders around as well. So we'll pick for different teams. So I'll probably be picking for your Bengals, I think, this time. Oh no, Lee will be picking for your Bengals.
I was going to say you did last time. You were not.
You probably draft you a wide receiver, Adam.
Yeah, I draft you a wide receiver because your 1-2 is not good enough. So I'm going to get you another one there.
We'll cut Tyler Boyd, save a bit of cash, and we'll take JSN. That's fine. He'll still be around.
There we go. But yeah, it'll be out. It'll be out then, and we'll do another one after the draft for some grades as well. And there might be one more in between, but we'll see how we get on by next Thursday. It's only like a week now, isn't it? So pretty much tomorrow. So.
Yeah, and no, it's never mind. I was going to say it's bank holiday, but that's a week after, so it doesn't matter. The betting pod, we may be doing one again next week. We're going to have a look over the weekend and see what markets are available and see how much has changed. Obviously, betting on the draft is usually a profitable venture. We normally do pretty well on it, but with the advent of betting in America, I thought that would open up more for us. It turns out that's actually making it worse because everything seems to move quicker than it used to. Obviously, the British books tend to copy a lot of the American books now. So it is a little bit more difficult, I believe, this year personally, but I'm sure people have got on months ago and managed to get some value. As I say, I haven't personally. I've just been incredibly lax on the NFL stuff, been re-listening to books and things like that instead of listening to podcasts. But there we have it. Obviously, the usual range of books over here have it. Paddy Power, William Hill, Skybet, 888 all have a multitude of markets on offer. Most of the things we're going to talk about tonight are from Skybet because they've had them the longest amount of time, and Tim and Liam have been posting in our betting group for a couple of weeks now on various bets available in there. So we will run through them. I will give prices if they are better elsewhere. I'll give you that price. So tonight we're going to go through the top 5 picks. Who's going to be taken at each one of those picks in order. There's a top 10 market. 9 out of 10 of those are pretty much confirmed. According to the betting, there is the final 10th player who I'm going to get opinions off these guys for. We will go through the first player taken at a number of positions. We will go through the number of players taken at one position. Quarterback is 4.5 at the moment, so that'll be interesting to see whether we think one of the other ones going to get in there. And we will go through a couple other bits. There was position a team is going to take with their first pick. Got there eventually. And we will, of course, do a £100 challenge because we try and do that every kind of big event and see how we do. And I will confirm the answers to those on my Touchdown Tips Twitter feed and on the Full 10 Yards Twitter feed. So, without any further ado, we'll get on to the first pick. Unsurprisingly, this is not going to take too long because pretty much everyone in the world seems to know it. Bryce Young is 1 to 10, 1 to 16 in places. CJ Stroud is 8 to 1 at 365. He's a little bit shorter than that on Sky Bet. Yeah, basically the news came out this week that Bryce Young isn't going to go to any more visits after visiting the Panthers. So we are all fairly convinced it's going to be him. But Tim, do you think it'll be anything different?
No, well, like I say, you have to try and just go back to that previous years or yesteryears to see. You had the Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield switch around, and you do get teams trying to be clever, or there was things going around saying that they were trying to go the Texans into trading with them to number one and swap places or whatnot. But like I say, you can never say never. But as let's say, if you're Bryce Young and you're cancelling visits to everyone else, likelihood is you know where you're going. So no, not really for me. I think he goes to Panthers.
Assume that's the same with you, Liam. Sorry, come.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, and I think you kind of cover yourself as well with the bet because you're doing first overall pick rather than to the Panthers. Just because if you believe the rumors that the Texans love Bryce and they're only doing this Carolina to make them trade up, then you're still going to win your bet because Bryce will go number one regardless. So I think it's pretty foregone conclusion. Like Tim said, they did have the Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold year, but it all changed around like twice. So all I'll say is if it's going to change, odds-wise, probably on draft day, on the actual day. So if you are someone that's holding a ticket and you want to try and hedge to make sure you get profit, on the day is probably when the next rumor would come out, whether that's true or not, but it will probably change the odds. So, I think Bryce will go. I think he's probably, I don't know if he's the best quarterback, but he's probably got the best tape of all the others so far, and we'll see. But yeah, I bet on him at 3 to 1 and 2 to 1. I think Callum as well, who has also bet on him to go first, who's normally on the pod. So we're holding winning tickets in theory.
In theory, yeah. Fingers crossed for you. Would you be tempted with a little nibble on Stroud at 8 to 1? A, to cover your bet, and B, in case there's any news on the day?
I can confirm I've already hedged. Yeah, I've already hedged. It was 6 to 1 though. So in terms of the UK, it's getting further and further out. So people must be hammering Bryce now. But I've hedged at CJ because I don't think anyone else would go 1 overall. But we'll see.
No, that's fair enough. So yeah, as expected, a nice quick one there. The Carolina Panthers probably taking Bryce Young or possibly trading out. Number 2 pick is a little bit tougher to choose. The Texans currently hold that pick, but they have been supposedly talking about trading out. Unsurprisingly, they're just going to see what they can get. If they do move out, then we know it's definitely a QB going there. If they don't, then it might not be a QB. They obviously are nowhere near challenging. So while I'm sure they would like their QB for the future, it doesn't have to happen for this year for them. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. Apparently, Lance Zierlein is got some contacts at the Texans, and he's been talking about Tyree Wilson being fancied for them. He is 15 to 4, best price available. But I say that you can also get 4 to 1 on him being the first defensive lineman taken. First defensive player taken. So you're best off doing that instead of this one. But I honestly don't know what's going to happen at pick 2. So I'll go to Liam first with this one. See if you got any info on it.
I was going to say, the worst pick to go first on this one. Lance Zierlein has got their first round pick correct 4 years in a row. And I think they had 2 first round picks as well in one of those years. And he's got it right every single time. He doesn't ever announce this, but from my digging, it seems like his close friend is basically a head of pro personnel scouting there. So it feels like he's got close links to the franchise. So he's not only just saying Tyree Wilson, he's almost confirming they don't want a quarterback if Bryce is gone. So I guess you have to play the market. Do you think there'll be a trade or not? If you think there'll be a trade, second pick, take whichever quarterback you like. Will Levis was 14 to 1 for this 2 weeks ago, and he's now 5 to 2, I think, on Sky. So that indicates that in the media and in terms of money, there's been a lot of money on that. I personally don't think they'll get a trade partner. So I'll be trying to find a market to go non-QB. I think Tyree Wilson is a pretty good shout. I don't think Jalen Carter's there, and obviously you've got the other choice of Will Anderson. So I think it would be between the two edge rushers, but I'll probably wait to the day and just go best price because I think they're going to try and keep it under wraps till draft day.
Tim?
Yeah, it's a big old question mark, isn't it? I think this pick would be a lot more straightforward, or would probably allow a lot more if they didn't have pick 12. Because I've seen so many different ways that the Texans can go about it. They can pick 2 and then trade up from 12 to 3 or 4 or 5 to get a quarterback, so they can get the best defensive player in the draft and the obviously they want Bryce Young, but if they wanted a quarterback, and obviously with the owners and whatnot, what's going on there, you can't go into a season with Davis Mills as your quarterback. So I wouldn't be surprised if like the bigwigs at Houston have said to him, look, we're coming away from this draft with a quarterback. So whether or not you take them at 2, or we have to trade up from 12 to get one. I think
or you trade for Trey Lance as well.
well, exactly, yeah. I think that's what that kind of makes the whole thing muddy, is the fact that they have 12. I think if they had 2, I don't think we'd be getting so much of. We'd probably get a better indication of what they were going to wanting at 2. So having 2 and 12, they can do a lot of things that they want to do, whether or not they stay in those positions. I agree with Liam. I don't think they'll get a trade partner. Same with the Cardinals when we get to 3 shortly. So I think in terms of 2 and 3, you can get. This is the position from a betting perspective where you can get your value, you can get your money, because it's not odds on. There's nothing odds on for someone to take someone. Obviously, if they do trade out, it then becomes you probably rip your tickets up. But I think with 2, I think 2 and 3 will probably stay, and there's a lot of value there with, like, say, Tyree Wilson or Will Anderson around about 2 for Anderson and 72 or 41. He said there for first defensive lineman. So. And that's again, whether that's just a whole big smokescreen, and they will have to take in a quarterback again, even those guys aren't odds on. So it's definitely one to kind of have a Twitter notification on for Lance Zierlein or any beat writers or any I always find that Josh Norris's kind of podcast that he does with all the beat writers for all 32 picks is quite insightful as well. So it's just one of those where you have to watch over the weekend and the first couple of days, because this is the time where all the big boards are getting drawn up. These are all where your players' kind of hierarchies get input, and draft values and kind of your scenarios. So it's kind of a buckle up and keep the internet browsers of your betting sites logged in.
Yeah, and the last one I was going to mention was anyone who listens who likes the draft is probably thinking, why they not just take CJ Stroud? But I agree with a lot of what Lance has said, and Josh actually, about CJ Stroud's agent is the same as Deshaun Watson. So there's some issues there between the two camps. And I think that, personally, I do think that is a factor. And there's other rumors that they have Will Levis graded higher. So for them, is there not more value to have a defensive end at 2 and then trade up to 5 and then get Will Levis rather than pick him at 2? If they're brave enough to think he's going to fall, then, like, in terms of the draft, if you like Will Levis, I don't. But if you do, then that makes sense. So, I think that's the reason why it's not CJ Stroud. And I think maybe a month ago, everyone thought it was going to be CJ Stroud, but he seems to have fallen off the radar a little bit at pick 2 and probably pick 3, which we'll talk about next.
Yeah, so the odds for pick 2 is Will Anderson 15-8, Will Levis and CJ Stroud, the quarterbacks, both 5-2, 7-2 for Tyree Wilson, 8-1 for Bryce Young, just in case he doesn't go first. And then you have your back up to 16-1 for Anthony Richardson, again, the third quarterback, and 20-1 for Jalen Carter if they want to take a risk.
Did you say Bryce Young 8-1 to go third overall pick? Is that the worst bet of this year so far? Second
overall.
Oh, sorry,
yeah.
I thought you said third. I was going to say, that's the worst.
No, just updated the odds for the second pick. So third pick is the Arizona Cardinals. You are looking at 5-2 for CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Will Anderson. Again, that's people thinking that there's going to be a trade made here. You have got 5-1 for Tyree Wilson, 5-2, for Will Anderson as well, and all bigger than that. So, yeah, Cardinals obviously again, it's a tough one to predict because they may well trade out. They have all the needs in the world. The Cardinals, they do not have a very good roster at the moment, and could be losing Buda Baker as well, which I wouldn't mind the Bengals giving up pick 28 for, frankly, but I don't think that will happen. They obviously have a QB under contract, so they do not need that position. So will the Colts panic, thinking someone's going to usurp them and try and get up there? They'll only have to move up one spot. I know that the mock draft that the guys did, they had the Colts moving up a spot or two. Or will the Cardinals take best player available, which could well be Will Anderson. He's 5-2 for that now, for them to go there. Or will someone come up for, as I say, will someone come up for a QB? Will Levis is 10-1 now. I had him as 9-1 earlier, so I don't know if the odds have changed on that. But he eats full bananas and he puts mayonnaise in his tea. So I just don't know why anyone would possibly want to take him, even if he is decent on the field. It doesn't make sense to me. So for me, I've got it down as Will Anderson, 11-4. But it's a bit of a crapshoot already, which is difficult to say at pick 3. You normally get the first few picks right and you're okay. But yeah, this year it could be anything. So Tim, what were you thinking for this?
Yeah, the Cardinals are an absolute mess, aren't they? Let's be honest. I think if there is a trade, I think the Colts one to come one spot up is the most logical. However, the only thing I can think of is if they go further down is depending on how desperate the Cardinals get and how low their asking price is to be able to move down however many spots they want to move down, because there's quite a lot of defensive. I know they've got a lot of guys on the defense have kind of gone. There's a lot of defensive players there that they can pick in the top 10 that will improve their team a huge deal. So teams like Raiders, dare I say even the Atlanta, I'll get on probably onto that a bit later on, but yeah. It depends how low their asking price is. Would depend on kind of if they go down or not. I think they'll. Well, I don't know. Like I say, they've got so many holes that I wouldn't be surprised if whoever moves up it does it very cheaply indeed. I think obviously the Colts don't have to give up as much because they're just one pick behind. But Cardinals could quite easily be one of those teams that trade back 2 or 3 times. Or at least twice in the draft if the situation allows itself to. So maybe the Colts and then the Raiders, or the Colts and then the Falcons, or something like that. Especially if the Houston Texans take a defensive lineman, take Tyree Wilson or Will Anderson.
Yeah, I think this is probably the hardest pick to judge, to be honest, because the Colts don't have to give up much here, and they can just guarantee that no one else jumps them. I think that's the trade scenario that makes the most sense. There is a lot of talk about the Titans and the Raiders. But like me and Tim said before, I'm just leaning to the no one making a massive trade. I just think there's enough confidence if you're the Raiders that one of the 4 will be there at 7 for you not to do a massive trade up. So if it's not a quarterback at 3, then and the Cardinals stick, they've done loads of work on offensive tackle, and we'll talk about it a bit later in the £100 challenge. But they've taken all the main offensive tackles in for visits. 2 of them as well they've done at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine, and then again in Arizona. So is that for them if they want to trade out? So if they trade to 11, they'll pick a tackle there, or is it for 3? I'm not quite sure. But
yeah,
for me,
I was going to say, I'm not a draft expert and by far, and obviously you and Lee and have done all this kind of stuff, but I don't feel that this offensive tackle class is as good as like previous years that warrants kind of a top 5 pick for a tackle. So again, I can't see. I don't know if it'd be in their interest to take a tackle at 3. Obviously, they do want to trade partner, which is why I'm thinking if they get that desperate, they can say to someone at 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 or something, and say, if you want to trade up for a quarterback, just give us something that we can at least work with, like a 2nd round pick, or something just that in normal years wouldn't get it. But your thoughts on like the tackle class doesn't seem to be kind of like I think last year's was pretty good, wasn't it? The year before.
Yeah, last year. Yeah, year before last as well was really, really good. I think the offensive tackle is more likely if they trade out. But if they get stuck at 3, the rumours are they've also got a brand new GM, so it's kind of hard to judge. You haven't got the leaks you get from all these other teams. Like the Eagles pick will probably get leaked a bit early because of how long he's been there. He's got friends in the media. But for the Cards, it's a brand new GM. And my thought is the rumours are they love Tyree Wilson. So if the Texans pick Tyree, then they're at 3 and they're like, oh, God. If they don't love Will Anderson, they've got the choice between Gonzalez, Witherspoon, or a tackle. And I think they might go tackle. But yeah, I'll take tackle just because of the value there. And it probably be Paris Johnson would be my guess as the first tackle off the board. It'd be him or Skoronski. But yeah, again, I think it is more likely for a trade back. And if they don't trade back, then I don't know who the Cardinals are going to pick because they have a very strange way of picking players they shouldn't. So
yeah, just to add on that, and sorry to elongate the 3rd pick, but Tyree Wilson and Will Anderson, they only met Will Anderson at the Combine, according to waterfootball.com, and Tyree Wilson actually had a private workout as well, so that kind of adds a bit more substance to that.
Yeah. So yeah, as we say, they've got a lot of needs, so it could be anything. They will be praying for QB 1 and 2, and then obviously it makes their pick a bit more valuable for as with the two of the big ones off the board. Pick 4 at the moment is the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, we just talked about them possibly moving up. The favourite for pick 4 is Will Levis at 7-4, CJ Stroud 3-1, Anthony Richardson 7-2, and then you've got Will Anderson 7-2 and Tyree Wilson 16-1. So I haven't done any kind of work on this one because I have no idea what the situation is going to be at pick 4 already. So I believe that they're interested in Will Levis. Again, not one for me. But yeah, I mean, I think the insight here is pretty much the same as what we just said with the Cardinals. Really, it could be a bit of anything. And the Colts obviously had a very down year last year. They look like they could be in a bit of a rebuild already, which is a bit worrying with Jonathan Taylor coming off a pretty poor year last year. They need a wide receiver still, but they won't be taking one at 4. They need quite a lot, frankly. So yeah, Liam, I'll go to you first in this one after went Tim first last one.
Yeah, so I think, again, a little bit this is how you play the board. So if people think there might be a trade, or maybe you've already bet on number 3 and you think there isn't going to be a trade, if you want to kind of hedge your bets and say number 4 is going to be a trade, the fact that Tyree Wilson is 16-1 for pick 4 is good at value, because if Houston trade back with the Colts or the Cardinals trade back, both of those teams allegedly love Tyree Wilson. And so I think 16-1 is great value, so I'll be betting that myself. But if they stay here at 4, I personally bet on CJ Stroud. I know they do apparently like Will Levis, but I just wonder if they like Will Levis because they thought that CJ Stroud would be gone at number 2. And now maybe things have changed. They're going to get a chance to pick between CJ and Will Levis. And I'm just going to kind of use my own scouting here. And I've got CJ Stroud so much higher on my big board than Will Levis. I just can't be betting Will Levis above CJ Stroud. So yeah, I'm going to be betting CJ Stroud at 3-1 and 16-1 for Tyree Wilson in case someone trades out.
Yeah. I kind of echo that. I thought it was also telling that the Colts didn't even meet Will Levis at the combine. So, I mean, if you're looking for a quarterback, this is a guy that obviously you need to know the ins and outs of. If you're not going to be bothered to meet him at the combine, I'm not buying it. They've met with Anthony Richardson 3 times, according to the site I've got here. So, including a private workout and doing some extra bits as well. So, yeah. I don't buy Levis, but I also like Stroud, who was also in for a workout and a private. They've met with him a couple of times, so I agree exactly with what Liam said there.
Nice. So I think one of the first picks we probably can be fairly sure will stay with the team is pick 5, the Seahawks. They obviously paid Geno Smith, so they're not in desperate need for a quarterback. They could go there just to have one in for the future. But it's the Seahawks. I think they're probably going to go for a defensive player, and I might be echoing what Liam said on the pod, or I might be echoing a different pod I listened to, but they won't be fussed with character issues. So Jalen Carter is the one I had written down at 4-1. He's 9-2 at 365 in William Hill, and 4-1 on Sky Bets, so just a little bit shorter. Tyree Wilson and Will Anderson again, both the other defensive lads are 5-2. But we are expecting at least one of them to be gone by here. So it'll be interesting to see where this one lands. But yeah, for me, as I say, I've gone with the Seahawks taking Jalen Carter. Tim?
Yeah, well, we come to the £100 challenge a bit later on, and I think Seattle to take a defensive lineman at 1-2 is one of the better. Well, I mean, it's short, but that's one of the banker bets that isn't 1-10 or shorter. So one thing I will say, I know you mentioned there that obviously they've tied up Geno Smith. Obviously, Geno Smith's not going to be the long-term answer. It was quite interesting to see some of the visits they've had, or some of the workouts they've had. Nancy Richardson is a guy that they've met a few times, who's kind of, I feel it kind of fits the mold of what they've had there recently with Geno. Russell Wilson obviously being mobile as well. So I didn't actually mind Anthony Richardson going there. Again, but I agree with you with what you said about defensive guys and kind of just the guys that Seattle tend to go for. So yeah, whilst I really like the 1-2 defensive linemen, because essentially they've got the pick of anyone they potentially want, unless obviously Houston and Arizona take one. If that is the case, I wouldn't be surprised they pull the trigger on Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, I agree. I think Jalen Carter 4-1 is like the value bet, because I do think that's very likely, and he for me is the best. But he's the best player in the draft for me. So I think that's pretty likely. But I think the 1-2 on the defensive lineman just covers you. It also covers you for a trade out as well. Obviously, if they do trade back with, I don't know, just say they traded back with the Raiders 2 picks, just so the Raiders could come up and get someone, they're still going to have. I'd say if QBs are going maybe 3 in the top 7, you're still going to have one of the defensive linemen probably at 7. And if not, Luke Van Ness is there as well, who's someone that's going to go somewhere between like 11 and 20. So if they trade back further, there's that option. So yeah, I think that's probably a really, really good bet. And yeah, I know Seahawks fans would probably want Anthony Richardson, and I think he's 6-1 as well. So there is again good value on that. And you kind of cover yourself a little bit for a trade, because if you say 5th pick Richardson, even if Seattle trade out, you could still win your bet with someone else. So yeah, I like Richardson for the value, and then betting the Seahawks for defensive lineman, like Tim said, on the side, just so you might be able to win that bet as well.
Yeah. Do you guys want to talk about 6, 7, 8, 9, or should we just go with the top 10 betting as a whole?
I find, I don't know about you guys, but I find Atlanta at 8 very interesting. In the sense that we'll come to position picks at some point. But if the draft's playing out how we're currently kind of gone through it, I mean, I know they've named Desmond Ridder the starter, but I wouldn't be against backing any quarter, like one or two of the quarterbacks, especially Anthony Richardson. Because I say they've just had Mariota. Ridder's kind of a bit of a runner as well. As long as I'm not too many coroners down already, but yeah, I feel Atlanta could be an interesting one. I don't take all this Bijan Robinson being drafted. I think he's like favourite to go to Atlanta or whatnot, but I don't buy any of that. But I find Atlanta very interesting at 8. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, Will Levis is 40-1 to go there. There's no Richardson ones on Sky, but you can obviously draft.
The Falcons are 20-1 for Richardson.
Oh, so yeah, that's definitely worth a bet for both of those. They need a quarterback. And the report came out a couple of weeks ago that they were doing their homework in case one falls is the word. So that's like, okay.
Looking at their visits, they've looked at all the quarterbacks. It's like, you don't. I know they've just come out and said Desmond Ridder's the star. I don't know if that's a bit of a smokescreen. It certainly feels like it by the visits and stuff. But you don't visit with the quarterbacks, and if you've got confidence in Desmond Ridder. Yeah,
and I could be wrong with the whole stay at 8 thing, but I think if they stay at 8, you've got more value in your bet, because no one thinks the quarterback's going to get to 8. So if you bet on the quarterbacks to the actual 8th pick and one does fall, I think you've got a good chance of winning good money. So I do like that for the Falcons. And the other one was pick 6, the Lions. They just apparently they love Witherspoon as well. I know he's 11-10, so the odds are not good. He is obviously a heavy favourite, but all the reporting comes out that if they don't take a quarterback, like that's their guy. He's a Dan Campbell type player as well, like press safety, aggressive, talks a lot, yaps a lot on the field, very, very aggressive, always in the weight room, that type of player. So that was the other one in the top 10 that intrigued me, just because I think if they stay at 6, then I think he's almost a lock, to be honest, for that position. Even though the odds are rubbish, but.
Yeah, quite an interesting one actually talking about Atlanta. The other one that I quite like, and just seems, I don't know, there's something written in the stars. I quite like Nolan Smith to Atlanta. Again, I don't know why I've heard it a few places, and it just does make a lot of sense. But it was 5-2 earlier when I was doing my prep. It's now 7-4, so that's for top 10. That's not to Atlanta. So it's hard to find value with top 5, top 10, top 20 picks, because you've got however many. Say top 10, you've got 11 or 12 people that are usually odds on or kind of close to even. So you're not getting the greatest value. But I thought Nolan Smith was an alternative for Atlanta. I know they really need a defensive tackle, but again, you're not really getting any. Jalen Carter and all the other guys. Jalen Carter won't get there. I don't think so. Nolan Smith. I just wanted to give him a shout out. 7-4 top 10. I thought wasn't too bad.
Yeah, Falcons love drafting players from Georgia, so I think that's a great bet for that one.
Yeah, as you were saying, Tim, there are actually 10 players who are odds on for the 11. Sorry, you were right, 11 for odds on for the top 10. Paris
I've
Johnson
working for
and
a bookie for
Skaronski.
nearly 18 years. Like you just you don't do a top 10 and then have just 10 that are odds on. It's always got to be 11 odds. You've always got to have the odds in your favor. House always wins. House always wins.
Yeah, it's the offensive tackles who've filled it out there. You've got Paris Johnson at 4 to 5 and Skaronski at 4 to 5. Obviously, people thinking that the Eagles, as Liam was saying earlier, are going to take an offensive tackle, which does make sense for them. They do like to replace a year early before their older players go retire, so it would make sense for that. And yeah, other than that, the best you're going to get is there's 9 players who are under 4 to 11. So the top 9 seem fairly well locked up. And yeah, top 10 was the one I was going to ask about, which
Yeah.
we think probably will be an offensive tackle. And Liam seems to confirm that.
Yeah. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, and you've got Nolan Smith and Bijan Robinson as the ones that get mocked in the top 10 also quite a lot. So they're the ones that are above your value. So if you are someone that thinks Bijan could go to the Eagles at 10, Falcons at 8, or like Tim said, Nolan Smith to the Falcons, or Nolan Smith to the Eagles, to be honest, he basically is Hassan Reddick. His profile at college is the same. So they're the only 2 players I think that, unless you've got loads of money and you want to hammer someone that's odds on, they're the only 2 for me that make a lot of sense. The rest you can find value elsewhere. Like there's no point betting Darnell Wright top 10 when you could bet him first tackle off the board. So yeah, I don't think there's much value for me in the top 10 market now.
Yeah, Bijan is 6 to 4. Obviously, he is probably the only running back going in the first round this year. Obviously, we all know running backs don't matter. That's the problem, and I think even the teams have started to get the message on that one now, for the most part. So I'd be surprised if anyone takes him this early, but he does. I mean, he's one of the few names that I knew before doing any research this year, so he's definitely got the recognition.
Yeah, one final now. I just want to throw out there, just as I've got it in front of me. Obviously, I've seen quite a lot of mocks with Lucas Van Ness to the Eagles. So I don't necessarily think he'll go any earlier than that. But looking at obviously, if he to be drafted in the 10th overall pick, which obviously is the Eagles, he's 5 to 1. Whereas if you bet on him to be a top 10 pick, he is 15 to 8. So if you're doing that kind of thing and you think top 5, if you look at Seattle, or if you look at Eagles at 5 and 10, and whoever's at 20, just have a look at what who the player that you're interested in is, because you might get a bit of value of the team position or the player to be drafted in the top thing, or in the top 5, or pick 5 and pick 10, you can probably get a bit more value or a bit more creative.
Yeah, he's a hard one to pick. I was doing research yesterday, and he's been picked for the Eagles more at pick 30 in mock drafts than he has been at pick 10 now. In the last 2 weeks, it just seems he's someone that's like, he basically had an amazing combine and his stock shot up, and then no one said anything about him since. So I think he's a hard one to read. That's why I think the odds are bad. So I think if you think him for someone like the Eagles or maybe the Seahawks at 20, then I think bet him to the team, like Tim said, rather than bet him top 10 or top 20. Because then the odds are
do like a request to bet or something.
Yeah. And Tim knows I could do with Lucas Van Ness being as high as possible for our redraft league that we're running. That was the player I was forced to pick to be the highest of anyone. So yeah, I could do with him being top 12 at least. It might get me a little bit further up. So we will move on from there on to the first O-line to be drafted. Obviously, we've alluded to this a little bit. Paris Johnson 10 to 11, Peter Skoronski 11 to 10, Broderick Jones 6 to 1, and Darnell Wright 6 to 1, and then Anton Harrison 40 to 1 at big odds. I know that we've mentioned him, or we mentioned him before the show. I can't remember entirely. But yeah, they are the ones. For me, I will be having a little nibble on Broderick Jones at 6 to 1. The Ross Tucker podcast, I listened to that last couple of weeks, and both the guests that they've had on, Evan Silver today and Anthony D'Amico, I think it was last week, both mentioned Broderick Jones at the price. He's 6 to 1 on Sky Bet. He is 13 to 2 on Paddy Power, so a little bit better over there. Just for the possibility of that one. I believe that Liam and Lee were saying that Anton Harrison's a big lad and size counts in these things. But I'll let Liam carry on this conversation because, again, this is the end of my knowledge.
Yeah, I do. I do love Anton Harrison, but I don't think he's going to be the first. He's a bit too much of a project. You can actually bet on the second offensive lineman taken, and Anton Harrison's 40-1 for that as well. So I don't dislike that for the second. But yeah, I agree with you. At the odds now, Broderick Jones is the best bet. 6-1. I personally do think it'll be Paris Johnson Jr., but when it comes to the NFL draft, I don't think you can bet 10 to 11 prices very often and hope to win money, because the NFL throws out some crazy picks. So Broderick Jones 6-1 is good. I did have Darnell Wright. He was 14-1 when I got him, but he's down to 6-1 now. He's probably a right tackle only, but the Bears really need a right tackle at pick 9, and I think that's probably the team you hope go for Darnell Wright if you've backed him like I have at 12-1 and 14-1. So yeah, we'll see. I think Tim might also have the same name.
Yeah, well, again, my knowledge of offensive line is not great, but I was trying to look at this from a different angle. I was looking at the draft order and I was thinking, okay, whereabouts are these guys going to go offensive tackle? So I've got Philadelphia at 10, Tennessee at 11, and 13 for the New York Jets, right? So I've literally just did it now because it just came to my mind. But Peter Skronsky is the only. Paris Johnson doesn't seem to have been met or had any meetings with the Philadelphia Eagles. So if you think the Eagles are going to take a offensive line, and Skronsky is probably your bet because they've had a meeting. They had a private workout with him. So I haven't had time to look at Tennessee or the Jets. But I think obviously the offensive lineman is going in that area. So maybe have a look at who of those three teams, who's kind of done visits, who's done what. Not just your combine stuff, but like private stuff, and see if you can find any beat writers about those three teams. But I'll have a quick look and see if I can find anything interesting. But yeah, I agree with what Liam said. Essentially, I've had a bet on. I don't fancy Anton Harrison for first round, and yeah, I don't really have too much more interest in or education to provide on this pick.
I was going to say the only other one was the Bears. They met with 4 offensive tackles, and they have met with Darnell. That's pick 9, and they've met with Darnell Wright, Broderick, Paris, and Skronsky. So all 4. So they're the ones I think. You almost have to guess who they're going to pick. I think you have to guess who they're going to pick, or if they trade out, like Tim said, then it feels like Skronsky is probably Philadelphia's favorite because he can play inside and outside. But yeah, it's a strong top 5. Then after that, it craters. So I think we'll see 5 go in the first round for sure for me.
Yeah. The only note I've got here is Darnell. I'll put Darnell Wright, decent bet at first because he's played both sides of tackle, but this was more from a New York Jets standpoint. Joe Douglas apparently quite likes him, Darnell Wright. So if you don't think Tennessee and Philadelphia take a tackle, let's say Darnell Wright could be a bit of value there, but that's just reading between some tidbits.
Over 5.5 offensive linemen in the first round is 2-5. Under is 7-4. Liam's just said there's 5 that should pretty much all go. So then you're waiting on someone reaching a little bit and getting the 6th one, which I know you guys mentioned. John Michael Schmitz and Osiris Torrance, I think, was mentioned. Although I think that was a Lee Love affair rather than anything else.
Yeah, Schmitz I like. I think he'll go in round 1. I think there'll be 6 at least that go, if not 7. So
yeah, 2-5 on over 5.5. First wide receiver to be drafted, Jackson Smith Najigba. Sorry, I knew I was going to mess that name up. Still is the favorite 1-3, but there's been a lot of chatter about him being mainly a slot receiver and not a 1 basically. I know there might have been chat about Justin Jefferson being that a couple of years back, so that might convince people otherwise. But you got 1-3 on Smith and Najigba. Zay Flowers is 7-2. Jordan Addison 6-1. Quinton Johnston is 10-1. I don't have a whole lot of information on this one, but I did mention Quinton Johnston being a bit bigger. He's 10-1. Best odds at Skybet, and he's 17-2 everywhere else. So just for the sake of trying to get a little bit of value, he would be the one I would be going for. It could be quite a way down the draft board, to be honest. Probably looking at maybe New England. We know that Green Bay won't take a wide receiver, although it would be hilarious if they did after Aaron Rodgers left, just to spite him. The
Hey,
Steelers
you say,
obviously
you
picked
say
up,
that. That's what I've got here. I've got Njigba to Green Bay. They're taking some sort of pass catcher. I don't care what anyone says. I've got
just to rub it
JSN to Green Bay written here. In terms of value, we're trying to find something else. I'm just trying to see if they did private workout. The only other one that I kind of liked was Jordan Addison to the Chargers. That's just another one.
21.
I just feel for some reason there's something in the stars, or something's just chatting to me. It's probably voices in my head, but they're just saying like Jordan Addison just feels like he's going to the Chargers. So if you don't think that who's the other one, JSN's going to anyone before then again I've got the Titans and Houston are candidates for Saxon and Jigba, but Jordan Addison's the only really other one. I don't really fancy Quentin Johnson until towards the mid to late 20s, if you like. But even I don't even necessarily think he'll go first round personally. But yeah, I can't really see outside of JSN. So
yeah, JSN was just over evens a couple of weeks ago, and now it seems to be locked on. I don't mind Quentin Johnson at 10-1. There's rumours that the Texans really do like him, but they might like him at pick 30. Whatever it is, 33 that they've got, because he has now met with the Chiefs twice as well. So the Chiefs believe he can get to 31. So if you're the Texans, you might think, okay, if the tackle falls to 31, we might be able to get him at 33. So I'm not sure, but Lansdowne does say they do love Quentin Johnson. So that's one that interests me. I think Zay Flowers is another one. Apparently he's gone through the New England playbook with Bill O'Brien in a private meeting, and they didn't do that with any other receiver, according to their Athletic Insider. So if you think that, I guess the Texans pick above them, don't they? They're probably the only team, and I think maybe Green Bay pick one above them. One behind them.
One below New England.
Yeah, so if you're like, I don't think the Texans are going to take one, then I think you could probably do Zay Flowers first off the board. He was 6-1. He's now down to 7-2. Or you can try and find a Zay Flowers to New England bet and try and get better odds. But yeah, I do think it's going to be JSN. But if he falls slightly, then you might be able to get some value of Zay Flowers there, going to one of those teams in that area.
Patriots' first pick wide receiver is 3-1, so obviously gives you a little bit more variation on someone else. Is there a Zay Flowers to be drafted by?
No. No, I found a line, so you can do like under or over 21.5. So obviously that'd be under 21.5 for me. If anyone listening does love JSN, you're probably better off just trying to, if you could bet 2 or 3 teams to pick him and get better value than 1 to 3. So whether that's Packers at 5-1, Patriots at 5-1, that might be a way to do it if you are set on JSN. But yeah, I just can't be having him at 1 to 3, even though I think it's probably going to happen.
Yeah, very, very fair. First tight end off the board. It has flipped from Michael Mayer a couple of weeks back. It went to Dalton Kincaid, and now it's back to Michael Mayer again. He's a best of 5 to 6 on Sky Bet, and just under evens pretty much everywhere else. I thought it was going to be Mayer all along, so he's the one I'd be betting on this one. It's now 4 to 6 on Sky Bet, so that one's changed already. Paddy Power, I think, if I have him at 5 to 6. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this one goes. You can bet on over 1.5 tight ends in the first round. I think that there's a chance that the Cowboys do. I think there's a chance the Bengals do. I don't think the Bengals actually will. I have a different bet for the position they're going to pick, which we'll mention later. But yeah, from what I believe, Mayer's the better all-rounder. Kincaid's more of a, I think you compared him to Travis Kelce kind of position. Obviously, nowhere near as good at the moment, but more of a playmaker than a blocker. Liam, is that right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, he's better than Travis Kelce in college, but not in real life now. I love Kincaid. I think he should probably be the first off the board. You kind of have to just think who's going to pick the player. If it's any team that runs the ball a lot, they're going to pick Meyer's going to go first. So you kind of have to almost. This is where it's good to probably do your own mock drafts and kind of think about it team by team and see where you want to go. So for me, they've been flip-flopping the whole process. So I probably would say to bet Kincaid at the moment, just because of the value, because I do think it's hard to read. There's also a little bit of value at second tight end taken because Kincaid did have a back injury. So if you're a believer that Kincaid might fall maybe out of the first round, you've got Darnell Washington there that you could bet as the second tight end. Or I know Sam Laporta as well, second tight end. If only one goes in the first round and it waits till round 2, Sam Laporta's had like one of the best draft processes of any of these guys, and he's 25-1. So there might be a bit better value in second tight end drafted. But I think Kincaid, just because he's not odds on, because I do feel like next Thursday we could see these two just flip around all the time. That's how close they are in people's minds, I think.
Yeah, he's definitely another one where you have your Twitter notifications on to try and where you can maybe eke out a bit of value where someone's a bit slow to do it. But regardless, from a betting perspective, although you've put the willies up me a little bit, Liam, by saying obviously I knew about the back injury, but I think if you're quite certain with Kincaid and you hear the right things through the grapevine, you can bet on Kincaid at first tight end at 6-5 and second tight end at 15-8. So as long as he goes in the first two, you're making money, right? So again, using the mantra of doing a mock draft, what teams need a tight end? You've got the Packers. I saw some people saying the Chargers need one. So Gerald Everett must be on a last year of his deal, or must be cuttable or something, because he did right there last year. So I was a bit surprised that the Chargers were linked, but they do need a bit of they do need a kind of a pass catcher with Keenan Allen getting on and Mike Williams not playing a full season. But yeah, Dallas, I think are pretty much certain to take a tight end personally as a Dallas fan. And Kincaid, he's so good at finding soft spots in zones, and he's an upgrade on Dalton Schultz, and he's got the same first name. So again, stars align. Dalton Kincaid to the Cowboys. Let's go. That's kind of my take from first tight end. But yeah, if you've got Kincaid at odds against for both first and second, and you're pretty high on him, that's a pile in job.
So what we're saying here is we're going to bet Cowboys tight end, Kincaid first tight end, Kincaid second tight end, Kincaid's going the first round, and just call this the Kincaid podcast.
Let's go, money made.
No interest in cunts.
Not this early.
Zach Kuntz, 80-1 for first tight end or second tight end. And there's the wonderfully named Luke Schoonmaker as well. Some interesting name tight ends. I have been taking the Zach fella in my last round of best balls just for the fun of it. Mr. Kuntz down there. I don't even know where he plays, but it was nice one down there. As I said before, you can get over 1.5 tight ends, over 4.5 wide receivers. Over is 5-2. Obviously, in recent years, we've been overwhelmed by receivers in the first round. This year looks a little bit different. You can get a 5-2 for the over. Under is 2-7. Over 1.5 running backs. Obviously, we're fairly sure Bijan's going to be the only one. Over is 7-2. Under is 1-6 for that one, so probably not worth backing there. Although Jahmyr Gibbs or Charbonnet might sneak in, but first round running backs is not the done thing anymore. Cornerbacks, we have 4.5 as the line. Over again is 2-7. Under is 5-2. So not a whole lot of betting to be done there. And as I mentioned before, QB is 4.5 QBs with the over at plus money. Cornerback, first cornerback, Liam said earlier, it's probably going to be Devin Witherspoon. With the Lions liking him, he's 1-2. Christian Gonzalez is 11-8, and Joey Porter Jr. is 18-1. And linebacker, I assume we don't really have anything to say about linebacker. Obviously, then none of them are expected in the first round, so there's not been a whole lot of interest in them, frankly. So we will skip past that one. So I quite liked team to take Exposition with their first pick. Obviously, as a Bengals fan, I do follow a number of people who tend to get things right, and Joe Goodberry's one of them. He's normally spot on with the Bengals, and frankly, the Bengals don't hide their selections very well. So I think they are probably going to go for cornerback, which is 5-2. Obviously, it depends who drops there. They are pick 28, so there's a lot of things that could happen. If Kancey is still on the board, I believe they'll run to the phone to get that pick in. You can get 14-1 on a D lineman because they do need interior D line, and to be fair, they do need edge as well. But I think Kancey will be there. I don't think he'll be tight end. They picked up Irv Smith. And knowing the Bengals, I think they'll be quite happy with going with him. And they re-signed Drew Sample for a year as well, which isn't exactly inspiring, but again, it's sound business by the Bengals. Bijan, if he somehow drops there, I mean, I personally would be happy with them taking him there. There's been a lot of talk about Mixon being not long for the team, and obviously there's been a couple of off-season stories around him this year. So Bijan was 11-2 for the Bengals to take a running back. Again, I don't think they will. I think it will be cornerback, and at 5-2, I thought that was decent odds, especially with Chidobe Awuzie coming off an injury, and they have used first-round picks on cornerbacks fairly recently. And then my mates in the AFC North, the Steelers, of course, they should strengthen the offensive line. They should give Kenny Pickett a bit of protection, but they don't do that. They like the defense. That's all where they normally put all their picks. And who better than Joey Porter Jr., whose dad used to play for them? I think to me, that makes sense. And to the market, it seems to make sense because they're even money to take a cornerback at their position. But that's the one I would go with there. So even money on the Steelers for a cornerback and 5-2 for the Bengals to take a cornerback. Tim, any options on these that you got?
Yeah, I mentioned a couple as we've gone along. Like quarterback Atlanta 11-1. They've hosted them all, except for Bryce for obvious reasons. And say with Richards, they've had a private visit with Richardson, so that wouldn't shock me. I thought 11-1 wasn't the worst. A bit of a curveball for this one. New Orleans tight end 7-1. I know Juwan Johnson was pretty good, especially in the red zone last year. But they brought in the offseason. They obviously brought in Foster Moreau before he obviously failed his physical and whatnot as well. So I thought 7-1 for a tight end New Orleans was kind of under the radar a little bit because obviously they don't bring in Foster Moreau if you don't think you need a tight end, right? So I can't remember where they picking.
They're quite high.
They're 29, I think.
29. So yeah, if one of the tight ends drop or whatnot, I didn't mind tight end there at 7-1, and I quite liked, as I mentioned, I think the Chargers will get some sort of pass catcher, whether that's tight end or wide receiver, and they're both odds against, I think it's 13-8 for wide receiver, 2-1 for tight end, something like that. You might be able to get better elsewhere, but again, I think they're quite decent odds to kind of plumb on both if you've got enough money to spare on that kind of stuff. I quite like Pittsburgh. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers should be O-line, but yeah, I agree with everything you pretty much said in your little tidbit there, and we all know how I feel about Seattle in defensive linemen. So,
yeah, Seattle defensive linemen's one we spoke about. I mentioned Cardinals offensive linemen for the trade back, just because I think the odds at 7-1 there are pretty good. There's loads that are bad odds as well. So you've got Ravens cornerback, I think 4-7. They apparently love, me and Tim were talking about before, they love Emmanuel Forbes. So maybe it's just worth requesting that, seeing if you can get him in the first round instead. That might be better odds than 4-7. And then another one that I liked that wasn't terrible odds, because the other one was Bucks offensive lineman, that's Evans, Washington cornerback Evans. But the Jags, they obviously lost their right tackle because he came to the Chiefs. They're 3-1 to take an offensive lineman, which I thought was really good value. Cornerback's the favourite there, and I just think there's a chance all the good ones could be gone by the time that they pick. So I like that. And then the other one was, what was the other one? Oh yeah, the Buffalo Bills. So defensive lineman is 9-2, which is the fourth favourite on the board. They have 0 defensive tackles under contract, not this season, season after. So for me, that's the typical time to pick Cansey, pick Brian Breesy, Marzi Smith. They're all scheduled to go somewhere between 20 and 35, 36. So for me, I think Buffalo Bills defensive lineman's a good shout because they're always trying to get pass rushers in. We saw what they did last offseason. So I think they'll be trying to add another one this year.
Yeah, the betting for the Bills is a little bit weird. Wide receiver 2-1, linebacker 3-1, and obviously we've just said that we don't expect a linebacker to go in the first round. Yeah. So them at pick 27, it seems a little bit weird that that's the second favourite for them.
I've heard a lot of buzz of Nick Hopkins to Buffalo.
Yeah, I don't think they'll draft a receiver. I think Hopkins will go there. I almost think that's probably one of the better bets of us to not go that. There's no way they'll pick a linebacker at that pick unless obviously they trade back, and then you kind of get screwed a little bit if they do it in round 2. But yeah, offensive linemen, they've got one tackle on the roster in 2 years' time, and they've got no defensive interior linemen. So I think 3-1 or 9-2 is good, and then you've obviously got Bijan Robinson there at 12, like 12-1 Buffalo to take any running back is. I know I've got a friend that's backed that, but I can't see them going running back or linebacker in the first round.
You don't bring in Damian Harris.
Yeah, I agree.
And you don't draft James Cook last year, and well, I mean, obviously they can cut. Yeah, they drafted quite bit decent draft capital in James Cook as well. I can't see Bijan to there.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, there's a little bit of interest on Cowboys taking Bijan if he drops there. Obviously, a very generous pick. Giving up the house for him. He's 6-1 to go to the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are 5-1 to take a running back. Tim,
if we want Bijan, we'd have to trade up, and we don't trade up anymore. Like I don't think we traded up since Morris Claiborne, God knows how many years ago.
So you got Gibbs there. Ready.
Yeah.
Gibbs is ready for you there. Nice pass catch.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is the end of those stuff. So we will get on with a £100 challenge, and we might be able to do this in an hour. So yeah, £100 challenge. We have a fictional £100, and we will pick our favourite, however many bets. We will start with Tim because he's the top of my little list. Tim, do you want to run through yours?
Yeah, I like how I kept to the five bet max, and you all just went scattergun approach. You went Jay Cutler in the fourth quarter. Anyway, moving on. Tight end Dallas first pick 5-2. Obviously we spoke about it a little bit. I think the way the thing that's I'm flipping and flopping about this is obviously Kellen Moore's not with us anymore. He's buggered off to Chargers, isn't it? But generally Dak likes a tight end, but not enough to pay Dalton Schultz because he just catches the ball and falls over. But I think with Kincaid or Meyer there, I think I think that one of them will be in the vicinity and we'll take them. I don't think we'll trade up for Bijan. I think we'll pick someone later in the draft, even like Bijan's Rashawn Johnson. He's Texas as well, isn't he? So I think we'll address running back a bit later on in the draft. Seattle defensive lineman, spoke about that. That's obviously my biggest bet. It's 1-2. Kincaid second tight end because I've got a funny feeling that I just thought it was a decent price actually. But obviously I like both. Offensive line for Pittsburgh, I mentioned that, 13 to £20. And then just a sneaky little one, Detroit quarterback first pick. Again, they're a team that have got 2 picks in the first round. So for me, like I'm thinking it from a bigger picture perspective. Like they're not going to be. I don't think they're going to be picking in the top 10 next year or the year after. Because I think they've got the nucleus of that team there is pretty good. So they're either paying Jared Goff, mediocre amounts, and then which kind of hamstrings them because they'll get. They'll be in the teens or the early 20s for the next couple of seasons. So you either pick a QB now or you don't pick one at all and you pay Jared Goff. So I wouldn't rule out. I thought 10-1 was a bit big for Detroit quarterback first pick, considering that they initially only wanted Jared Goff for a year. I quite fancied that. So that's kind of my speculative last tenner on that one.
Nice. I think they've got a couple of extra picks next year as well, but obviously they're loaded now. They've sorted the offensive line out. They've got a ton of weapons. So, yeah, giving Goff the extra year and letting a QB sit would make sense. So, yeah, 10-1. Not a bad pick, that one. We'll go with me next just because I'm next on there. So, yeah, I mentioned Bengals to take a cornerback. That is 5-2 on Sky Bet. Broderick Jones, first defensive line is 13-2 on Paddy Power. First wide receiver, Johnston, is 10-1 on Sky Bet. First defensive player, Tyree Wilson, 4-1. Pretty much all the ones I've mentioned already. Then you've got £10 on Washington to draft Jahmyr Gibbs. Probably not in the first round, but they may well need a running back there. And obviously they've had a bit of a turnover with everything. £20 on Seahawks to draft Jalen Carter, which is 4-1. And then just with my last 20 quid was over 1.5 first round tight ends. No, was that under or over?
Under.
Over 2.5. Sorry, under 2.5 first round tight ends at 2-5 on Sky Bet. I've put my little banner in the way and I couldn't see what I was picking there. 20 quid on that one, 2-5, just because I thought I'll have at least one.
I was going to say, if you've got 2-5 on over 2.5 tight ends, I'll take the under.
Yeah, a little bit wrong on that one, but I've gone with. I've shot for the sky on a lot of them, so hopefully one of them will hit, and then I'll have the banker on that one, and that'll bring me home. Liam, you've gone with you've gone even more shotgun than I have. So I'll let you read through yours.
Yeah, so I basically completely forgot that Tim said 5, so that's my fault. I've also got Seahawks to draft Carter at 4-1, £10 on that, similar to what we said before. Raiders draft Will Levis. Apparently, they absolutely love Will Levis. That'd be a very Raiders pick.
Yeah,
And that's 10-1, £10 on that. I put Hendon Hooker first round as well, 5-4 on Sky Bet. There might be better odds elsewhere, but a lot of rumors of teams trading up back into round 1 to get him. There's a lot of rumors that there's teams already in the round 1, like the Vikings, that like him. So that's another one. Cardinals first O-line pick. We've already spoke about that. I've bet this in real life a few times. Bijan to the Commanders, 12-1. They do not care about positional value. They've drafted the old GM when he was in Carolina. He's drafted running backs early. They've drafted, obviously, 2 running backs in the top 3 rounds in the last 4 years as well. So they don't mind drafting running backs there. Witherspoon to go the 6th pick to Lions, 11-10 Sky Bet. We spoke about that. And then Zach Charbonnet, second running back taken, £5 on that, which is 9-2 on Sky Bet. I think Gibbs is a pass catching running back only for me in the NFL. I think Charbonnet's a 3 down back, so someone might take a risk on him. And then the last 2, so Witherspoon, first corner, taken alongside Paris Johnson, first O-line. That's 9-4 at William Hill, and they're both odds on to go in the first. So I think that's good value there. And then finally, over 3.5 wide receivers taken. I think there could be 5, but there's the big 4, and I think all 4 do go in the first round for me. So yeah, I think that one's a little bit of a lock.
I want to Stuart's inquiry on that second one. It's the Raiders to draft Will Levis is actually 6-1, but if you do 7th overall pick, he's 10-1. So I think you're trying to pull a fast one there, Liam.
The 7th pick, that's the one I'll commit to. Then those odds, I'll take the better odds.
Win on the technicality.
So I think we're all done. I did have something else I was going to ask you boys, but it's slipped my mind now after going through that one. But yeah, we both had the Commanders to take a running back at least. Obviously, they lost J.D. McKissick. Let him go. So got B. Robbins, Antonio Gibson, who haven't proven the best there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do take a. If they do take a running back at some point, probably not with the first pick. Although, as Liam was saying, it wouldn't surprise him at all. So we will see. I will put those out on my Twitter feed and I'll get them on the Full 10 Yards Twitter feed. I'll get someone to put them up for us. And yeah, we may well be back next week with a little update on these and seeing where the odds have moved. Obviously, we now have a record of what we've put them at. So it'll be interesting to see how things go over the next week.
Inverse of this one.
Yeah, we'll bet on the alternate of everything.
CJ Stroud #1 overall.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll cover all bases and pretend that this one never happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, as always, as Tim has been alluding to all the way through, keep an eye on beat writers on Twitter feeds, get notifications on. There will be leaks in the coming week, and especially 2 days before the actual draft itself. Also, last year, Paddy Power had in-play betting for at least the first 10 picks. I think it might have been a little bit further through the round than that. Which was very useful. So yeah, we will see where it goes, and fingers crossed, make some money for us all. Did you boys have anything else before I log us off?
No, just highlighting what you said. Look out for live betting because they are not good at taking it off in time for picks. So if anyone offers it, then yeah, like you said, go for it because that's how you make a lot of money on draft night.
Yeah. So it is Thursdays it kicks off, or was it Friday? I can never remember these things.
Yeah, Thursday. Yeah, in Kansas City, the home of the Super Bowl champions. Not sure if you're aware of that one, Alan, but
I definitely wasn't going to mention that it's been. I even put it in our write up saying it's 10 weeks since the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, but I missed that out conveniently.
Oh no.
Yeah, we will. We may well be back over the summer to discuss win totals. The Bengals, the Cincinnati Bengals, have the highest win total of any team in the league at the moment, which will probably change by the time we record. And frankly, I don't believe they're going to win over 11.5 games as the bookies do. So yeah, it was an easy one for me there. But yeah, with that, we will wrap it up and say thank you very much. And let's win some keys.